In this lesson, we are going to look at 3 beats from the legendary funk drummer, David Garibaldi. There's a lot of material for me to cover in this lesson, so there's not a lot of chit-chat up front. If you want the sheet music to this, it is down below in a pinned comment as well as in the video description. You can download that. I include a ton of extra measures. Now, before we get started with this, let me just say that David Garibaldi is an excellent teacher and teaches a lot of these grooves.
Now, the way I'm going to play it, I don't think is quite like the record. I haven't played this in quite a long time. And also, when I did play it, it sort of changed a lot as we played it so many times that the basic structure of it was the same, but how I played it changed quite a bit. So
I went back and I watched his teaching of them, but we also compared it. Tim Buell, who does the transcriptions for me, as well as all my sheet music, mixing video stuff. Many of you know him. We both listened to these songs and we listened to the original recordings and came up with what we were hearing. So I looked at what David teaches, and then I looked at what was actually played there, because many times players forget that they put a note here or there. So I will point out where those discrepancies are, and then you can choose for yourself. You can listen and be the judge of that. Now, in this first song, it's 105 BPM, Soul Vaccination. Now, this is from the live cut of the live Soul Vaccination album. Now, we're going to loop a certain part that he does on the intro. It's this ride cymbal bell beat. He's avoiding 1 with the kick drum again, so it sounds really hip. He's got 8 notes on the hi-hat. Let's break down exactly what this is. So, again, this is from the live Soul Vaccination album. We're going to do 8 notes here. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We have a paradiddle in between the right and left hand on beat 1. In beat 2, it goes 2 on the kick drum, E and Then in beat 3, it goes 3 E and all accented. And beat 4 is going to go 4 with the kick drum and the bell, E is accented and on the bell, and on the kick drum. Get 8 notes going here, 3 and 4 and. All right, let me slow that down, put it with a click, and then I'll play it at full album tempo of 105 BPM. Now, I do want to remind you, like in the last song, I include 9 measures in the sheet music, so you can really get a feel for what he's doing. This next one's a lot of fun too. Squib Cakes. Come on, you didn't think I was going to do a lesson without doing this one, right? At 111 BPM, there's also 9 measures of this, so you can not only get the groove, you can also get what he does. He improvises a lot, so what I did was we took this and we took the groove that you can loop the most, and then that's the one that I'm teaching, all right? So for this groove, you actually have 8 notes here on the hi-hat, and he's gonna give you a 1 on the kick drum. He hasn't done that yet. It's going to go 1 and here on the hi-hat, and then in the snare drum, it's gonna go 1 E and ghosted. Kick drum goes 1 E and . Now this recording is kind of hard to hear whether there's a kick drum in beat 2 on the E and the and or on the and. I'm gonna teach it on the and because I hear it more on the and than I do on the E and the and. But just know that you may want to throw that mixture in there on beat 2. So beat 2 has 2 and on the hi-hat. In the snare drum, it's gonna go 2 E and . The E and the are ghosted here. And then we play the kick drum on and. Beat 3, we have 3 E accented, and then on and we're gonna open the hi-hat and then an unaccented . On the downbeat of 4, we have another opened hi-hat closing it on the E of that beat. And so it's gonna go 4 E and . All right, again, I'll play these slow and then I'll play them at album tempo. Oakland Stroke, it is going to be at 130 BPMs. This is one of the baddest of the bad grooves ever to play. I included 8 measures of it in this sheet music. Let's just take out 2 measures. We can make a 2-measure loop of it, but to get his overall feel for it, I would suggest looking at all 8 of those measures. It's easiest if we break this up into individual beats and the patterns in the individual beats. All right, so the hi-hat is doing this consistently. It's going 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 3 EN, a 4 EN, a 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 3 EN, a 4, with a slight accent on that downbeat. Now, let's look at these in individual beats. It's 2 measures, so we're gonna have 8 beats total. In the first beat, whenever he will play a crash, he'll play the downbeat with the kick drum. If he's not playing a crash cymbal, then he will not play the downbeat with the kick drum. So it is going to be 1 ghost note of E, accent and then an on the kick drum with the hi-hat. So it's gonna go. Beat 2 is going to be, again, that hi-hat pattern, 2 E and We're gonna play the E accented on the snare drum, the and on the kick drum. In beat 3, this is where one of the discrepancies comes up. In the original recording, we hear this on the of 3. There is a ghost note. He has taught it without an there. Once you get it up to tempo, you will not notice whether it's there or not. So you'll see me play it sometimes, you'll see me not play it sometimes, and it's the same thing in the original recording. So what is heard from the original recording is 3 ghost note E, accent and then ghost note with the hi-hat hitting there. So it's gonna go. On beat 4 and beat 1 of the next measure look exactly the same. So they're gonna go 4, open the hi-hat, and then close it on the and. So it's gonna go 4 E, ghost on and with a hi-hat on the So now let me just say it is really important to watch your stick heights on this song, because when I was working through this song, I was having trouble getting it to lock in correctly. And finally I just like closed my eyes one day and I'm like, oh my gosh, go back to college. Garibaldi working through future sounds. What's happening? I picked him up from the airport one time for a clinic and then I got lost and I never told him, and we drove for 2 hours and he knows to this day. That's a story that I'll tell later. So I'm like going through my head with all this stuff, and then finally it just like clicked in my head and I saw a picture of him playing. I'm like, stick heights, super important. Okay, so stick heights are really important to be able to nail this at full tempo. All right, beat 1 of the next measure is going to be just like beat 4. So it's going to go 1 E and The next beat, here is another note that he teaches, but this is not really heard in the original recording, okay? So I like putting it in there. I think it smooths out the groove more, so go with that way. You know, it's a dealer's choice there. I'm gonna teach it with it though. So it's gonna go 2, ghost note E, and on the kick drum, ghost note with a hi-hat. Beat 3 of the second measure, it's a 2-bar loop. It's gonna go 3 E on the kick drum and accent, unaccented on the snare drum with a ghost or with a hi-hat there. So it's gonna go. All right, on beat 4, this one, getting beat 3 and 4 of the second measure to mesh is really hard at full tempo. So on beat 4, we have the downbeat with the kick drum and the hi-hat. The E is accented on the snare drum and is unaccented, so. Then we add a kick drum on and a hi-hat on the All right, let me put this with a click slow, and then I'll speed it up to full tempo at 130 BPM. Remember, stick heights are key with this one.
All right, time for a reality check. I really love to give you a real view of what
teaching and being a drummer is about. And so this kind of is one of those moments. This groove is stupid hard at 130 BPM. I would hate to throw something up here and then be like, oh, you know, and you think you can nail that, and it takes you weeks and months to get to that. And so this group gave me a lot of trouble. And it gave me a lot of trouble specifically the last 2 beats of the second measure. There were just some internal things that were not syncing correctly. So rather than just work on this until I have it completely polished at 130 BPM, I wanted to show you what that process looks like, okay? So I don't have it as clean as I want it at 130 BPM. So what I'd like to do is, I showed it to you a little bit slower. I'll show it to you around a 120 BPM. That last 10 BPM really is the deal breaker, all right? So 120 to 130. I just kind of wanted you to see the evolution of what this looks like when you're working on something. And the important thing to remember is that you want to isolate the individual elements within whatever it is that's giving you a problem, because when you're learning someone else's material, it will not be what you would have naturally played. If you were in that situation, if you were in that band, you would have played something else. And so you have to be very careful to give yourself a little bit of leeway and go, okay, I'm learning someone else's voice to assimilate that into what I'm doing. And also isolate each individual part that's giving you problems so that you can address it and attack it on a deeper level than that. So rather than just me clean this up and show you the clean polished version, you go away thinking that it's just that easy to learn. I wanted to show you the process, okay? And that's kind of, as a drummer, that's kind of a hit to the old ego, isn't it? Like to show somebody your process. But that's what I want to do, because I believe that that is important for you to see from teachers. It was important for me to see from my teachers that they were not perfect, they are human, and for them to get a lot of the material I was working on, they had to go into the practice room and shed it the same way I did, all right? So check out a couple clips of just me going through that process where it is right now. I promise you, there's things that I've made notes on and that I'm still working on in my practice time. And that is 3 of my favorite drum beats from David Garibaldi that I think every drummer should know. Put in the comment section what your favorite David Garibaldi drum groove is. Don't forget to download the sheet music. It has 27 measures of transcribed parts, so it's in a pinned comment as well as the video description. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. Ding that notifications bell so that you get notified whenever new videos are posted. If it helped you, you think it may help somebody you know, give it a thumbs up, share it with that person. But whatever you do, I'll see you here in the next video.